This week's Parsha is Parshat Ki Teitzei. It's one of the Parshas that has a lot of commandments. Next week already we're almost finishing the book of Dvarim. We're not going to have lots of commandments, but this week it's full of commandments. We're going to concentrate on one commandment, but not even the commandment. A topic that comes because of this commandment. That's what we're going to address today. So let's see. Source number 1 tells us a strange rule, one of the 613 commandments that we find in the Torah. And it goes like this. Ki kare ken tzipor lefanecha. It says, if by chance you find a nest of a bird in front of you, baderech, on the way, bechol etz, you find it in the tree, or ala haaretz, or you find it on the earth, efrochim or beitzim, and in that nest you have small chicks or eggs. Ve'ha'em rovetzet ala efrochim or ala beitzim, and the mother is laying on top of the chicks or on top of the eggs. So this is the rule. God tells you there's a rule. What's the rule? Lo tikach ha'em ala banim. You shouldn't take the mother when the children are still there. So if you want to take the eggs, for example, what should you do? Don't take the eggs when the mother is there. You should shaleach teshalach et ha'em. You have to send the mother away. You have to whoosh her away, wind her. Whoosh, whoosh. Ve'et habanim tikach lach. And after you send her away, then you're going to take either the chicks or the eggs. And then it's one of those strange, by the way, we don't have many commandments like this. Usually a commandment doesn't say what the reward for a commandment is. But over here, it actually says the reward for the commandment. It says, what's the reward of the commandment? Leman itav lach ve'erachta yamim. So that it will be good to you, and you're going to have a long life. That's what the commandment says. We're not going to go into details of this commandment, but this commandment is not because of mercy. That's not why we do it. Because if it would be merciful, then you wouldn't be allowed to eat any meat. It's cruel to eat animals. It has nothing to do with being kind or being merciful. It's a decree. God said to do it. That's why we do it. Okay? But we see the reward. Let's continue. Source number 2, we're going to see that this story caused a problem within the Jewish nation. Specifically with one person, this story caused the problem. So let's see. Shanu Chachamim, this is from Talmud Chagiga, and this is a story from the sages. So what did the sages taught us? Arba'a nichnasu bepardes. There were 4 people who went into the pardes, to the orchards, meaning people who went to learn the secrets of the Torah. We're talking about very deep levels of Kabbalah over here. There are 4 people who went in to learn those deep secrets of the Torah. Asku besitrei Torah elyonim. They were busy with secrets of the Torah of the highmost level. Ve'eluhen. And these are them. Who are these 4 people that got to that level to understand those secrets of the Torah? Ben Azai, the son of Azai. Ben Zoma, the son of Zoma. The third one, that's what we're going to be concentrating on. His name was Acher. Acher in Hebrew means the other one. In other words, he was so bad, we don't even want to mention his name. We just call him the other one. By the way, how do we say a pig in Hebrew? We call it Davar Acher. We don't even want to mention his name. Another thing. Yeah? Just like Acher. Acher, something else. Acher. Who's this Acher? He actually had a name. His name was Elisha ben Avuya. His name was Elisha, the son of Avuya. And the 4th one, we all know him. This is Rabbi Akiva. The famous Rabbi Akiva. Okay? So let's see what happens to them when they peeked into the deep secrets of the Torah. Ben Azai, the son of Azai, הציץ לצד השכינה ומת. He peeked into the secrets of God, let's call it, and he passed away. He died. Just like the two sons of Aaron, Nadav and Avihu. He got such a high level, his soul left his body. He didn't want to come back down. He died. Alav hakatuv omer, on him it is written, Yakar be'enei Hashem hamavta lechasidam. Precious in the eyes of the Lord is the death of his pious ones. It says he got to such a high level, his neshama simply left his body when he saw such a godliness. Okay? Ben Zoma, it says the son of Zoma, הציץ לצד השכינה ונפגע. He also went to see the secrets of the Torah. He picked and he got injured. What did he get injured? כלומר, יצא מדעתו. He became loco, became crazy. He couldn't take it. His main, the fuse blew. Too much light. The fuse of his brain blew. ועליו הכתוב, on him there's also a verse, דבש מצאת. It says if you find honey, which means the secret, the deep secrets of the Torah, אכול דייך. It says don't eat too much. Because what happens if you eat too much honey? פן תשבענו והכתוב. Because if you're going to eat too much honey, you'll have to throw up. It's too much. The sweetness of the Torah was too much for him. He ingested too much and he became crazy. That's the second one. אחר, about אחר it says, קיצץ בנטיות. It says, chop down the shoots of the sapling. I think that's the best explanation. What does that mean? What happened to him? כלומר, יצא לתרבות רעה. It means that he became an apikoros. He stopped believing in Torah. He became an apikoros. Somebody who says, I don't believe God exists. Not exactly. He became completely apikoros. But that's what it means.
He became a Saduki.
Apikoros, that's what it says. We're going to see if it's Duki or not later on. And Rabbi Akiva, it says, Yatsa b'shalom, is the only one who went out in peace. Again, it's a whole class of why Rabbi Akiva went out in peace, but in short, I'm going to tell you just the punchline. It says the reason why Rabbi Akiva went out in peace, it says because he went in peace, he went into the Pardes in a peaceful manner. That's why he got out in peace. What does it mean in a peaceful manner? He didn't do it because he wanted to get close to God. All the other three, the reason why they started learning the secrets of the Torah, because they enjoyed the closeness of God. Rabbi Akiva is the only one who didn't do it because of that. So why did Rabbi Akiva learn Torah? Because it was a commandment of God. Not because he wanted to go close to God. God commanded him to learn Torah, so he learned Torah. But not because he actually wanted to go close to God. They did it because they wanted to get close to God. That's why everybody got injured. He did it because God wanted him to learn Torah. Okay, another class, another time. So, but let's try to understand. I understand Ben Azai. Ben Azai passed away because his soul, I understand. Ben Zoma, I also understand. Ben Zoma became crazy. I can also understand why. But why do you become an apikoros? Why do you become somebody who says, I'm going to go against God? That's hard to understand. And we're going to see what's the reason he became an apikoros. So let's look at source number 3. So Elisha ben Abuya, this is a story that Elisha ben Abuya says. פעם אחת היה יושב ושונה בבקעת גינסר. There was one time he learned Torah in the valley of Ginosar. וראה אדם אחד עלה לראש הדקל. And he saw one man climbing to the top of a date tree. ונטל אם על הבנים, and he took the eggs and the mother. In other words, he didn't do the mitzvah. וירד משם בשלום. And he went down in peace. Nothing happened to him. The mitzvah says that what do you have to do? You have to send them. You cannot take them to both together. You have to send the mother and only take the eggs, or only take the chicks. He took everything. And nothing happened to him. This is what he says. Let's continue. Page number 4. למחר, the next day, ראה אדם אחר שעלה לראש הדקל. He saw another man climbing to the top of the date tree. ונטל את הבנים, he took the eggs or the chicks, ושילח את האם, and he sent away the mom, the mother bird. He sent her away. וירד משם, and as he was climbing down from the tree, הקישו נחש ומת. A snake came, beat him, and he died. Amar, so Elisha ben Abuya says, hey, what's going on over here? Katuv, look what it says in the Torah. What does it say in the Torah? We just learned it. It says, Shaleach teshalach et ha'em ve'et habanim tikach lach. It says you have to send the mother away and the chicks take to you. And then it gives the reason. If you're going to do that, what's going to happen? Leman itav lach, because it's going to be good to you. Ve'erachta yamim, and you're going to have a long life. This is called the long life. Immediately after the guy passed away, he died. Eichani tovato shel hazeh, it says, what's going on over here? How can God do it to him? Eichani arichut yamim shel hazeh, where is his long life? This is the occurrence that happened with Elisha ben Abuya, that because of this, he became an apikoros. Just because of this story. Just because of this halacha. Okay? Let's continue. So, this is another interesting fact. We're just going to have an introduction. One of the most famous sages that we have, his name is Rabbi Meir. You might have known him, Rabbi Meir Baal HaNes, is one of the most famous sages that we have. Most of the teaching of Rabbi Meir, he learned from Elisha ben Abuya. He learned from this apikoros. Most of his teaching, and by the way, most of the teaching, he didn't learn from him when he was a kosher gentleman, when he did the right thing. After the fact. He learned from him after the fact that he became an apikoros. He learned most of his Torah from him. So that's what we're going to address today. That's the topic that we're going to address. So, this is source number 4. It says like this. שאל אחר את רבי מאיר לאחר שיצא לתרבות רעה. So Acher and Rabbi Meir was still a student and a teacher, and Acher, Rabbi Elisha ben Abuya, already went. He became an apikoros. He already didn't believe. He already went against God. And Acher asked his student Rabbi Meir, "Mai dechtiv?" It says, "Tell me." I know there's a verse. The verse goes like this. It says, "Lo ya'archena zahav u'zchuchit u'tmorata kli paz." It says, neither gold nor glass can equal it, nor is a pure golden vessels its exchange. So he says, what does this verse refer to? This is what Acher asked Rabbi Meir. Amar lo. So Rabbi Meir told him, Elu divrei Torah. It says, these are words of the Torah. Shekashin liknotan kechlei zahav. It is hard to acquire. It's hard to understand Torah, just like it is hard to buy golden vessels, vechlei paz, and expensive vessels. Venochim le'abdam kechli zchuchit. But it's easy to lose them just like glass. In other words, if gold falls into the ground, nothing happens to it. It's a little dent. But if glass falls into the ground, you know what happens to it? It crashes. So this is words of the Torah. It takes a long time and hard work to acquire it, and it immediately can disappear. Yeah? So this is what Rabbi Meir is answering Acher. Acher says, Amar lo. Acher disagrees. Acher says, you never understood it. It's not talking about words of Torah. It says you didn't understand the verse. Amar lo Rabbi Akiva Rabach lo amar kach. He says Rabbi Akiva, your Rabbi Rabbi Meir, he has a different explanation for the verse. He doesn't have your explanation. What's the different explanation? Rabbi Akiva says, what are the vessels of gold and vessels of glass? Even though once they're broken, they can be fixed. He says, even a sage, even after the sage went off the way completely, you can fix it. There's a way to fix it. In other words, Elisha tells Rabbi Meir, you know what the verse goes on? On people like me. Someone who goes against God, someone like me can also be fixed. Okay, let's continue. We're going to learn another story that we're going to try to understand about Elisha and Rabbi Meir. So that's source number 5. Tanur Rabbanan. The sages tells us another story about the two, the student and the master. Maaseh be'acher. This is a story about Acher. Shaya rochev al asus beShabbat. That he was riding on a horse during Shabbat, which one is not allowed to ride a horse on Shabbat. So he was riding a horse on Shabbat. Vehaya Rabbi Meir, and you would think Rabbi Meir sees his master riding on a horse. Send him away. What are you doing? No. Rabbi Meir was running after him, walking beside him, and doing what on Shabbat, and doing what? Learning Torah. That's what they were discussing. They were always discussing Torah. He was trying to learn Torah from him. Vehaya Rabbi Meir me'alech acharav. Rabbi Meir walked behind him, lilmod Torah mipiv. Why? He wanted to learn Torah. So this guy, imagine today, the sage coming to shul, smoking on Shabbat, and Rabbi Meir is sitting with him and discussing Torah. Everybody over here gets an aliyah, and this guy is smoking, is doing whatever on Shabbat, doing whatever he wants. Doing melacha on Shabbat. Amar lo Meir. So now, this Elisha ben Aboya was completely went against God, but he was so in tune with the laws that he knew. You're going to see how much in tune he was. Amar lo Meir. He told to Meir, Chazor le'acharecha. It says, Meir, you can't walk with me anymore. You have to go back to the city. Why? We just learned it in Hilchos Eruvin, you remember? 2000 Amah. שכבר שיערתי בעקבי סוסי עד כאן תחום שבת. There's a rabbinic rule, it's only a rabbinic rule, not a Torah rule, that you're only allowed to walk out of city limits 2000 Amah. Around, let's say, 2 miles out of city limits. And we walked, and I just have it in my mind. I know it's right here, it's 2,000 miles. So in other words, don't walk anymore, go back. Look, by the way, it doesn't say it over here, but I'm going to address it. He says to Rabbi Meir, Chazor acharecha. It says, go back. So Rabbi Meir tells Rabbi Elisha, you should also go back. Now, you should also do tshuva. You should also come back to God. Yeah, we're going to see what's going to happen later on with this story. But let's look at page number 5. קודם שאלישע בן אבויה, it says, before Elisha ben Abuya יצא לתרבות רעה ונעשה אחר, before he became an apikoros, before he became this person we call him אחר, the other one, היה במעמד ובמצב נעלה ביותר. He was on a very high level. ועד שמסופר בגמרא, and until it is told in the Gemara, שאחר היו אחד מאלה שרצו לפרדס. There were only 4 people who ever entered the secrets of the Torah. He was one of the 4, right? And he's one of the 4 and he didn't become crazy or died. So he was better than the other 2, right? This is his level. But the problem is, I'll tell you what the problem. לאחר שיצא לתרבות רעה, after he started to go against, by the way, this is a lot of, just for historical facts, many people are not aware. Elisha ben Abuya not only was historically bad when we're talking about going against the Torah. He was historically bad going against the Jewish people. This is the time of the Romans, and Rabbi Elisha ben Abuya used to go to the Roman director over Israel, the governor over there, and he used to tell him how to abuse the Jews. For example, he used to tell him which decrees to put upon them so that they're going to suffer the most, and so on and so on. To the degree that sometimes the Romans used to make the Jews mechal Shabbos, go against Shabbat. But the Jews were able to do it in such a way that it's not exactly going against Shabbat. So Elisha ben Abuya told the Roman, no, they're not really breaking Shabbat. Make sure that they really are going to break Shabbat. So this guy was really a criminal. Not just Jews were killed because of him. Not one and not two. Hundreds, maybe thousands, maybe tens of thousands of Jews were killed because of him. He was completely against God, completely against the Jewish people, and nevertheless we see whom? Rabbi Meir is his star student. There's something strange is happening over here. Let's continue. ונעשה אחר, מסופר בגמרא, so there's a story in the Gemara, שאחר אמר לרבי מאיר, that אחר says to Rabbi Meir, רבי עקיבא רבך לא אמר כך, אלא חולו. היינו שאחר פעל אצל רבי מאיר הוספה ביד התורה. We see that אחר was a teacher of Rabbi Meir. And when was he a teacher of Rabbi Meir? When he was already off the way. וכן מסופר שם, we also know this famous story, מעשה באחר שהיה רוכב על הסוס בשבת, that אחר used to ride on the horse on Shabbat. והיה רבי מאיר מהלך אחריו ללמוד תורה מפיו, רבי מאיר was walking with him. כיוון שהגיע לתחום שבת, once they got to 2,000 אמה out of the city limits, אמר לו, מאיר חזור לאחריך, שכבר שיערתי בעקבי סוסי עד כאן תחום שבת. he tell רבי מאיר, מאיר, you have to go back. שבזה מודגשים שני פרטים. Now, notice two things over here. Number one, אפילו כאשר אחר רכב על סוס בשבת, even when he was riding on a horse on Shabbat, היה רבי מהלך אחריו ללמוד תורה מפיו. Like I said, in shul, he's smoking a cigarette, in shul on Shabbos, and Rabbi Meir is sitting to learn Torah. So this guy is riding a horse, and Rabbi Meir is running after him to learn Torah. What's the story? ולא זו בלבד, it says not only that, אחר הזהיר את רבי מאיר שלא ייכשל באיסור תחום שבת. And the funny part is, this Apikoros, this guy that goes against God, he's telling Rabbi Meir, you're about to go out of the limit of Shabbat. למרות שזהו איסור מדברי סופרים בלבד, even though it's only a rabbinic prohibition, it's not even a Torah prohibition. It's a rabbinic prohibition. Even that, he says, Rabbi Meir, you shouldn't do that. It's not for you. So what's going on over here? What's this whole story? מכאן רואים את גודל העילוי של אלישע בן אבויה. From here we see how great Elisha ben Abuya was. שאפילו לאחרי שיצא לתרבות רעה, that even after he went and he became an Apikoros, לימד תורה לרבי מאיר. He still was teaching Torah to רבי מאיר. שעליו אמרו שהאיר את עיני חכמים בהלכה. And I'll tell you something about Rabbi Meir. What does it say about Rabbi Meir? It says in Rabbi Meir, when Rabbi Meir used to try to explain to the students his viewpoint, it was too much for his friends. In other words, they knew that Rabbi Meir was a genius, but he was so much above the other sages at the time that they couldn't even understand him. The Rabbi Meir was head and shoulders above everybody else. So imagine where Elisha ben Abuya was, right? ועד שלא יכלו חבריו לעמוד על סוף דעתו. His friends couldn't even understand Rabbi Meir at that time. So just imagine what levels we're talking about over here. We're on page number 6. So we're trying to see how come this Elisha ben Abuya, how did he get to such a high level? What's the cause? Yeah? So but why? What happened that Rabbi Elisha merited to be the best in the world at the time? After Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Elisha was number 2. How did he merit to be number 2 in the world? So let's see. וטעם הדבר מובן על פי דברי אלישע בן אבויה עצמו. There's actually a teaching by Elisha ben Abuya. It was actually one of the teaching of Elisha ben Abuya. Anybody knows where it is? In Pirkei Avot, in this ethics of the fathers that we read right now. Elisha ben Abuya has a teaching over there. And listen to the teaching. Elisha ben Abuya says, Halomed Torah Yeled. It says, what is it similar when you teach a child Torah? Lemahu Domeh. What is it similar to? Lediok Tova al Niyar Chadash. It is similar to an ink that is written on a new piece of paper. Let's do the Pirkei Avot inside. So this is source number 6, Ethics of the Father. Elisha ben Abuya Omer, it says, Elisha, the son of Abuya, says, Halomed Yeled Lemahu Domeh. It says, when you teach a child, what is it like? Lediok Tuva al Niyar Chadash. It is like ink that you write on a new paper. What does it mean, ink that writes on a new paper? Let's see. Valomed zaken lemahu domeh. And if you teach an old person, what is that similar to? Lediok tuva niyar machuk. It's like you used this paper 100 times already, you erased it 100 times, and then you write on it. So there's also something written on it, but it's not clear, because there's the marks from the old 100 times that was already written in it. But if you write on a clean piece of paper, that's really there. In other words, you can see it clearly inside. So what's Elisha ben Abuya trying to tell us over here? Bartanura over there explains, Al Niyar Chadash, when you teach a child, it's just like ink on a new paper. Shehu mitkayem, it says it's going to last forever. You can't take it out. It says, Kach girsat hayaldut eina mishtakechet. It says, this is, if you learn something when you're small, you're always going to remember it. You probably know this by yourself, guys. There's probably songs that you remember from the age of 14 years old. Right? There's some songs that's in your mind, you probably remember all the words. Now you try to learn something, you can't learn anything. But when you're young and you learn something, it stays forever. You can't take it out. Okay. So what's the explanation over here? What's going on with Elisha? So it says like this. Me'achar she'Elisha ben Abuya, since Elisha the son of Abuya, lamad ribui Torah biyalduto, he learned so much Torah when he was a young man. Ukemesupar b'Gemara, just like it's written in the Gemara, she'aviv amar, that his father says, ho'il vekach kocha shel Torah. His father says, since this is the power of the Torah, haben hazel et Torah ani mafrisho, we're going to learn soon. There was an occurrence when his father, Elisha ben Abuya's father, realized what's the power of the Torah. And after he realized the power of the Torah, he says, I'm going to dedicate this guy's life to Torah. And then he dedicated his son's life to the Torah. His sons didn't go out and play with the other kids. He sat down and learned Torah all the time. Hine ha-Torah shelamad beyalduto, all the Torah that he learned was when he was a young boy, נתקיימה אצלו באופן נצחי, stayed by him forever. מאחר שהיא בדוגמת דיוק כתובה על נייר חדש, because this is just like he taught us. It is ink written on new paper. שהוא מתקיים, that it exists forever. So let's see what's the story that happened with Elisha ben Abuya, that his father decided that Elisha ben Abuya is going to learn Torah all the time. We are on page number 7. So the story goes like this. Mesaper Atana Elisha ben Abuya. This is a story that's brought, by the way, this story is not in the Gemara. It's a strange thing over here. It is not written in the Gemara, the Tosfos anywhere, the story anywhere, but the Tosfos on the Gemara brings the story. Maybe he brought it from another source, or I don't know exactly from where he knows it, but this is a Tosfos on the Gemara that brings the story. The story is not written in the Gemara itself. So it says like this. Abuya Avi, this is a story from Elisha, talking about his father. It says, Abuya, my father, Hayam Migdolei Yerushalayim. He was from the great sages of Yerushalayim. Beyom Abrit Sheli, in the day of my circumcision, קרא לכל גדולי ירושלים, he made a big feast, he called all the sages of Jerusalem, והושיבן בחדר אחד, he made a feast in one big room. ואת התנאים רבי אליעזר ורבי יהושע השיב בחדר אחר. And the two תנאים, רבי אליעזר ורבי יהושע, he made them a special room, because they were special. ולאחר שאכלו ושתו, התחילו גדולי ירושלים לטפח ולרקוד. So after they ate, they drank, they had a big feast, they started dancing. They were so happy in his bris. When he was born, all the sages of ירושלים started dancing. אמרו התנאים, עד שהם עוסקים בעניינים שלהם, נעסוק אנו בענייננו. So Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yoshua says, whilst they're dancing, we're going to start learning Torah. Right? ישבו ונתעסקו בדברי תורה. They started discussing words of Torah. ירדה אש מן השמיים והקיפה אותם. Fire came from the heaven and they started dancing inside a circle of fire. That's how holy the place looked like. There was a circle of fire surrounding them while they're dancing, while they're learning Torah. אמר להם אבויה. So Abuya is asking the two sages, אנשים, מה באתם לשרוף את ביתי? He says, guys, what are you here for? You're going to burn my house down. אמרו לו, חס ושלום. He says, God forbid. אלו יושבים, היינו וחוזרים דברי תורה. It says, you didn't understand what was happening. We're repeating words of Torah, מתורה לנביאים ומנביאים לכתובים, from the Torah to the prophets, and from the prophets to the writings. והיו הדברים שמחים כניתנתן בסיני. And it says, and we experienced them, these words of Torah, just like the occurrence at Mount Sinai. And at Mount Sinai, what happened? There was fire from the sky. So also now, we got to the same level as fire from the sky. Fire, just like Mount Sinai, there was fire from the sky. Also now, there was fire from the sky. וכי לא באש נתנו. אמר, so then Elisha, then Abuya, Elisha's father says, הואיל וכך כוחה של תורה, wow, he says, look at the power of the Torah, אם יתקיים לי הבן הזה לתורה אני מפרישו. If the son is going to survive, I'm going to make sure the son only learns Torah. Yeah, this is him. This is how he came around. This is why he learned Torah so much. So now we go back to our. See what's going on over here. ועל פי זה מובן, so now we understand, עד כמה צריך להשתתל בלימוד התורה עם קטנים. How much we have to be careful when we learn Torah with young people, with the child. You're probably looking at me and says, Rabbi, you're 50 years too late. Why are you telling me now? You should have told me 50 years ago. But we're going to see soon. It actually is relevant to us in our everyday life. Okay? But we see how important it is. היינו, נוסף על זה שמצוות עשה מן התורה על האב ללמוד את בנו הקטן תורה, besides the fact that it's a mitzvah from the Torah for the father to teach Torah to his son, וכמבואר בפסקי דינים לצמח צדק, שגם הקטן מחויב ללמוד התורה מצד עצמו, כשיכיר, that also a child is obligated to learn Torah when he recognizes the importance of it. הנה נוסף לזה, צריכים להשתדל בזה ביותר, but we need to be very careful in this. מצוד גודל המעלה בלימוד התורה של ילד. Because look what happens when you teach a kid Torah. You know what happens? זהו דוגמת דיו כתובה על נייר חדש. It is just like writing with new ink on new paper. What does it mean? It's going to last forever. Look at Elisha ben Abuya. He became an apikoros, went against the Jewish nation, and nevertheless, he knew Torah. The Torah was ingrained in him, was part of him. It was who he was, even though he's going against God completely. Let's continue. Page 8. וכפי שרואים בפועל בחינוך החסידי, just like we see how the Hasidim are trying to do it, שעוד טרם ידע הנער להבחיל בין טוב לרע, that even before the child knows to distinguish between good and evil, מחתכים אותו מיד שתהיה לו התלהבות חסידית בעניין הקדושה. By Hasidim, we're trying to immediately take the child to make him excited about holiness. באופן שלמעלה ממידה והגבלה, that he's going to be excited about doing commandments. ומדגישים לו שהדברים מכוונים אליו, וכך צריכה לנהגה בתולה. And we tell him that this is the way he needs to behave. But let's continue in our story with Elisha ben Abuya. We're going to see that it becomes even stranger, this whole story. ובהמשך לזה, the continuation for this story. מובא בסיום משנה זו, it brought in the end of this Mishnah, מאמרו של רבי מאיר, the teaching of Rabbi Meir, תלמידו של אחר. It says this is the teaching of Rabbi Meir also in Pirkei Avot. In Pirkei Avot, there's also a teaching from Rabbi Meir. What's the teaching of Rabbi Meir? Rabbi Meir, it says like this. It says, אל תסתכל בקנקן, אלא מה שיש בו. Don't look at the vessel, but at what it contains. יש קנקן מלא חדש מלא ישן, וישן שאפילו חדש אין בו. There are new vessels that are filled with old wine, and old vessels that do not even contain new wine. Now, what does it mean? What is Rabbi Meir discussing over here? Rabbi Meir is discussing his teacher. Rabbi Meir is teaching us a teacher. He says, not everybody should go and learn from whom? From an apikoros, from someone who goes against Torah. But there was one person who was able to learn from him, Rabbi Meir. Do you know why Rabbi Meir was? Because Rabbi Meir, his teaching was, don't look at the body, don't look at the vessel, look at what's inside of it. In other words, Rabbi Meir, when he looked at Elisha ben Abuya, when he looked at Acher, he didn't look at his behavior. He didn't look at what he was doing. He looked at the knowledge that what? That was inside of him. And he was able to separate the knowledge, the wine. He was able to see the old wine that is found within this rotten vessel. The vessel was completely rotten, was completely broken. But he was the only one who was able to do that, by the way. No one else was able to do that. Everybody else stayed as far away from Elisha ben Abuya as possible. And that was the right thing. Rabbi Meir was capable of only taking the good parts of Elisha ben Abuya without the bad parts. So this is what was his teaching. שבזה מבואר, in this it is explained, כיצד למד רבי מאיר תורה מאחר. How Rabbi Meir was able to learn Torah from Acher. Why? לפי שרבי מאיר לא הסתכל בקנקן, because Rabbi Meir did not look at the vessel, אלא מה שיש בו. He looked at the information that inside it, ולכן למד ממנו את דברי התורה שלא בילדותו. In other words, he only acquired from him the ink that was put on that paper that he learned in his youth. The Torah that he learned. שהם נשארו אצלו באופן נצחי. And like we said, he learned them when he was a young boy. They're going to last there forever. It's like a song you remember from the age of 14. You remember it forever. He remembers this Torah forever. להיות בדוגמת דיוק כתובה, נייר חדש. It is just like ink that's written on your paper. לאידך, on the other side though, מובן שההנהגה זו ללמוד תורה מאחר, obviously it's understood that not everybody should go to every person who goes against the Torah and start learning from him. אינה שייכת לכל אחד ואחד. That doesn't belong to each and every one of us. וכמפורש בגמרא, just like it explains in the Gemara, מהי דכתיב? It says, who should you learn Torah? The Gemara tells you who you should learn Torah from. Not from somebody who goes against God. מהי דכתיב כי צוותי כהן ישמרו דת ותורה יבקשו מפיהו כי מלאך השם צבקות הוא. You should learn Torah from people who look like angels, who behave like angels, from righteous people, not from people like Acher. אם דומה הרב למלאך השם, it says if your rabbi is similar to an angel of God, יבקש תורה מפיהו, then you should seek Torah from his mouth. ואם לאו, אל יבקש תורה מפיהו, but if not, you shouldn't learn Torah from such a guy. He's going to teach you the wrong things. How come Rabbi Meir didn't learn the wrong things? Because he was able to distinguish between the vessel and the wine. אלא שאצל רבי מאיר היה עניין מיוחד. רבי מאיר was very special. Rabbi Meir rimon matzah. Rabbi Meir found the pomegranate. Tocho achal, he only ate the seeds, and the rest he was able to throw away. Klipato zarak, the shells he all threw away. In other words, the bad parts of acher he threw away. שזהו בהתאם למאמרו, אל תסתכל בקנקן, אלא מה שיש בו. And this is also what Bible is teaching. Do not look at the vessel, do not look at the shells, only look at the Torah that's inside the pomegranate. Only the seeds. One more strange story, just to end it and put it all together. כאשר נחה נפשו של אחר, when Acher passed away, we are on page 9, all the way on the top. When Acher passed away, אמרו בבית דין של מעלה, there was a trouble up there in heaven. What was the trouble? שלא ידונו אותו ולא יבוא לעולם הבא. It says, we have a problem. This guy is not going to go to hell, but he's not going to go into heaven. He stays in a limbo state. The only person that is going to hover around there. Not here and not there. Why not here and not there? לא ידונו אותו כראוי לו. It says, we cannot put him in hell. You know why? There's too much Torah that he knows. He knows too much. He says, a person that knows such an Rabbi Akiva. Yeah? The levels of Rabbi Akiva we're talking about. He knows so much Torah, he doesn't belong there. You cannot put him in hell. There's no way he belongs there. Mishum she'asak b'Torah, it says, because he knew so much Torah. Ve'zchut ha'Torah megina alav. And the merit of Torah protects him from going to hell. But on the other hand, the guy was responsible for the killing of tens of thousands of Jews. And besides that, he was completely going against God. He cannot go into heaven, that's for sure. ולא יבוא לעולם הבא משום שחטא, but he cannot go to the world to come because he is a sinner. So he stayed nowhere. Amar Rabbi Meir, so Rabbi Meir said, now this is Rabbi Meir's student. Rabbi Meir said, מוטב שידונו אותו כראוי ושיבוא לעולם הבא. Rabbi Meir says, you know what? It's not a way to stay not between hell and heaven. It's worse than everything else. It is preferable to what? That we should send him to hell. He should suffer over there, but then the whole idea of Gehenom is a place where all your sins get washed out. It's a place of, let's call it hot water, that washes away all your stains. So it burns, it's hot. But it says it's preferable for Elisha ben Abuya, my teacher, to go to Gehenom, so that one day he will be able to go to where? To heaven. Matai yamut, he says, whenever I'm going to die, ואז אבקש דבר זה בשמיים, I'm going to ask God to send him to hell, to send him to Gehenom. ואעלה עשן מקברו. You're going to know if I succeeded. You know how? If I succeeded when I passed away, and you see there's going to be smoke coming out of Elisha's ben Abuya's grave, you're going to know that I succeeded. That I put him where? In Gehenom. שידעו שהוא נידון בגיהנום, so that everybody will know that he's in Gehenom. כאשר נחה נפשו של רבי מאיר, when Rabbi Meir passed away, עלה עשן מקברו של אחר. Started coming out smoke from the grave of אחר. Smoke started coming up. משמע שנתקבלה בקשתו. From here we learn that what he asked for was actually received. אמר רבי יוחנן, this is a few years later, Rabbi Yochanan comes around. Rabbi Yochanan is still alive, and all this time there's smoke coming out of Elisha's grave. וכי גבוראי לשרוף את רבו, it says, what Rabbi Meir? This Rabbi Meir is a great guy by burning his teacher? That you call that greatness? ורק זו בלבד אפשר היה לעשות את הקנו, it says, that's the only thing Rabbi Meir could have done? You should have put him also into heaven, not just put him into the hell. אחד היה בינינו בין החכמים שהתקלקל, ואין אנחנו יכולים להצילו. It says, there was once amongst us, he was a sage, like all of us, and we can't save him? אם נחזיק אותו ביד, מי יוציא אותו מידינו? It says, you know what? When I'm going to go down, after I finish my 120 years over here, I'm going to grab him by the hand, and I'm going to take it out. אמר רבי יוחנן, מתי ימות? It says, when I die, Rabbi Yochanan says, ואחבה עשן מקברו. You're going to see that the smoke is going to stop coming out of his grave. Why is the stop? It's going to... להודיעו שהוציאו מדין גיהנום, והביאו לחיי עולם הבא. And then everybody will know that he went out of Gehenom, and he went into heaven. ואכן, כאשר נחה נפשו של רבי יוחנן, פסק עשן מקברו של אחר. And then when Rabbi Yochanan passed away, the smoke stopped coming out of the grave of Acher, and everybody knew that Acher is where? In Gan Eden. פתח עליו ספדן אחר בהספדות רבי יוחנן, so one person said, when he was giving a eulogy for Rabbi Yochanan, וכך אמר, and this is what it says, אפילו שומר הפתח לא עמד לפניך. It says, even the guardian of hell, the guardian of Gehenom, couldn't stop Rabbi Yochanan. שהרי שומר הפתח של גיהנום לא יכל היה לעמוד לפני רבי יוחנן שהוריד אחר משם. Because Rabbi Yochanan forced himself into Gehenom, grabbed Rabbi Elisha ben Abuya by the hand, and took him out of the gates of hell. Let's look at page number 10. והנה, from here we learn, מאחר שאלישע בן אבויה למד תורה בילדותו, that since Elisha ben Abuya learned Torah when in his youth, in what manner did he learn Torah? באופן של דיו כתובה על נייר חדש, in a manner of ink written in new parchment, הרי זה נשאר אצלו באופן נצחי. It remained by him forever. ועל ידי זה נפעל סוף כל סוף התיקון של אלישע בן אבויה. And this is how Elisha ben Abuya was fixed. וכמסופר בגמרא, just like it says in the Gemara, שעיקר בשלמות התיקון של אחר נפעל על ידי רבי יוחנן, that Rabbi Yochanan forced אחר to come out of Gehenom and to go into heaven. ולכן אמרו על רבי יוחנן, this is why they say on רבי יוחנן, אפילו שומר הפתח לא עמד לפניך, that even the guardian of Gehenom couldn't stand in front of you. When he took אחר and took him out. ומובן שתיקונו של אחר, from here we see that how do we fix אחר, נפעל רק בזכות התורה שלמד, is only because of the merit of Torah that he learned. ובפרט שלימוד זה היה בדוגמת דיוק כתובה על נייר חדש, and specifically because this learning was new ink was ink on new paper. Now, what is the message for us? The message for us is like this. You know who we are? Who are we? We are Elisha ben Abuya. Each and every one of us, throughout the day, what do? We go against God. We are. This is who we are. We, each and every one of us, is Elisha ben Abuya throughout the day, all the day, when we don't do the right things. We all know what the right things to do are. And we fail to do the right thing constantly. Every day, people look at me and says, Rabbi, thousands of times a day. We fail. Every time we get angry, we go against God. Every time we waste time, we go against God. Every time we open the internet and we don't do what we're supposed to do. There's so many good things to do. There's hundreds of times a day when we are Elisha ben Abuya. And over here the message is, you know how we can save ourselves, just like Elisha ben Abuya, that behaves like us, that we behave like him. How can we elevate ourselves from the Gehenom we are making? How do we elevate ourselves? We have to learn Torah when? In our youth. But you're saying, Rabbi, but I'm 55 years old. It doesn't mean the youth of years. You know what it means? You wake up in the morning. The first thing that one is supposed to do in the morning is what? Be busy with Torah and mitzvahs. The first thing you do in the morning is what? You pray to God. The next thing is what you're going to do? Is you learn a little bit of Torah. It says, if a person in his youth, which means in the morning, right, is going to do that right thing every morning, that's what he's going to do. He knows, I take upon myself every morning before I start going out into this craziness of this world, to do whatever I do in this world, the first thing I'm going to do is learn Torah. Now, I'm not asking, you say, but Rabbi, we're not asking a person to learn Torah for 5 hours. You start 5 minutes. 5 minutes at least every morning to learn Torah. Today it's easy. We have a class every morning over here at 9 o'clock. We learn Mishnah. There's plenty of things. You don't want to do this. There's plenty of things on the internet. Plenty of sections on the internet where you can learn. Take yourself 5 minutes and learn something for 5 minutes in the morning. You can learn the Parsha for 5 minutes. There's quick Parsha you can learn in 5 minutes. There's plenty of things. If one does this in the morning, which means in his youth of the day, then even if we act like Elisha ben Abuya, that little bit of learning Torah is going to stay with us and is going to be able to elevate us from the Gehenna that we create upon ourselves to come into heaven. I'm not talking about coming into heaven after 120 years. I'm talking about living a meaningful life. Living a meaningful life has to start with learning Torah in the morning. And it doesn't matter how much. At least 5 minutes. If you can do more than 5 minutes. That's the message of Elisha ben Abuya.